Okay, this video is just provided as just an extra little resource for you as you're doing these polynomials where you're given the roots and you're asked to find the equation. Remember, an equation always has an equal sign, so keep that in mind as you're solving these. If we're solving for the roots, then it would be equal to 0. So I want you to remember that, and I'm going to be looking for that as we solve these in your final answer. Remember back in the day when I asked you to do this, I'd only give you 2 roots. And so let's look at that first one. What would we do if I gave you these roots? We would do the sum and the product. Wonderful. And so what that simply meant was I was going to add these 2 numbers together, giving me in this case -2. I would multiply the 2 numbers together, and that would give me -3. And then from that we would write the equation. So I would say x squared. Remember, we'd change the sign of the sum, and then we would set it equal to 0. Easy enough. Well, what do you think we're going to do when we have 3 of them? My suggestion to you is you group them together. Now, truth be told, if there's 2 that are somewhat alike, in other words, +1 and -1, plus the square root of 2, minus the square root of 2, 1 plus I, 1 minus I, or anything like that, where they're basically, they look the same except for a sign, I'm going to group the 2 of them together. And then from that, I would then use the other one. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to do the sum and the product of these 2 together. The sum of that is 0, and the product of that is -1. So I would have x squared, I would have -1 equals 0. Now this represents a root. That means that this is x equals 3. So if I want to figure out what that would be in the equation, that means that that would convert to be x minus 3 as a factor. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to multiply through x minus 3 times x squared minus 1. Now, I'm going to put a placeholder here just for the sheer fact that as I'm doing this, it'll help group things together since I'm going to be doing this mentally. So I have x times x squared, which gives me x cubed. X times the 0x, that's just 0, minus 3x squared. Then I have minus x, move in, I get 0. And then I have -3 times a -1. And that would be the polynomial equation, whose roots are 1, -1, and 3. All right, in a similar way, let's look at this next example here. I'm going to do the sum and the product. Now, the truth is this x equals 0 thing, honestly, it doesn't get much easier than that. So what this basically says is when I finish with these 2, and I do the sum and the product of these 2, and I get its equation, then I'm going to multiply through by an x. And that's really all that does. So the sum would be 3 and the product would be 2. So I'd have x squared minus 3x plus 2. And that x equals 0, again, as a factor is just x. So I'm going to multiply through, giving me x cubed minus 3x squared plus 2x equals 0. All right, now I'd like you to do this next one. I know it has radicals in it, but I want you to do the same thing. My hint to you is to stick with the square root of 3 and the negative square root of 3. Group those 2 together and then do it. I'm going to be looking for this in your notes. So as I ask you to do this video, you're going to have this one completed for me for class. Okay, good luck.